let's do some sound checks before I call the meeting to order. Let's start with the downtown campus. Ann Sebrin.
Hi, this is Ann Sebrin for the Downtown Campus Faculty Center.
Thank you, Ann. Let's move next to the Polytechnic campus with Penny Ann Dolan.
Yes, hi, this is Penny Ann Dolan, and this is the Polytechnic campus and my office.
Great, thanks. Greg Stone with the Tempe campus.
Yep, Greg Stone here for the Tempe campus.
Terrific. And Eduardo Pagan at the West campus.
Hi, this is Eduardo Pagan for the West campus.
All right, terrific. All right, and at this time, we will go ahead and call our meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. This is Senate meeting number 3 of the 2020-2021 academic year. At this time, I will ask Maria to do our quorum calculations via Zoom poll. Maria?
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Just a reminder that this is for voting members only. So if you're a guest or an ex officio member, please abstain from voting. Thank you. Here you go. Okay, closing poll. And now I'm going to follow up with a follow-up question.
And if we could please ask to leave the poll open just so that our Senate Secretary has an opportunity to record the data.
Excellent. Couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to be closing the poll. The answer would be 4 years. So 21% of you got it right. Thank you.
And Maria, are we recording this meeting?
We are.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. At this time, we will go ahead and take action on the minutes from our last Senate meeting on September 21st. The minutes of that meeting have been distributed and are available on the University Senate website. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. So now we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is the UAC Chair's report. I have 3 brief items that I will share with you at this time. The first is a report on the Arizona Faculty's Council meeting that took place on October 1st. I won't share all of the items that were discussed during that briefing because it was about 6 hours worth of meetings that took place over the course of a day. But I'll share with you one of the highlights from that was an update on the ABOR Food and Housing Security Work Group. Mark Denke of with the Arizona Board of Regents office is coordinating items and working with this work group, which was brought to the forefront by student regents to focus on the cost of attendance, particularly in the current environment where financial aid comes up short. So they are in the process of making appointments to this work group, which will ideally include a mix of faculty and students from all 3 of the state universities. They have identified a few primary goals, which include assessing the current practices at the 3 institutions. This is largely undertaken as a grassroots effort, and the University of Arizona is assembling a coalition from each of the universities. And they're going to start by conducting a data analysis and a literature review, looking at each of the institutional and analytics around this issue, and hopefully trying to gain a better understanding of the impact of the pandemic on food and housing and how that also affects student retention. So they're working on identifying strategies and how the three universities can work together on this initiative. And they're also working very closely with the Dean of Students at each of the universities, and Dr. Joanne Vogel from ASU will be working closely with this working group. And they hopefully will be able to provide a report to the regents in ABOR. So that is the first item I wanted to share with you. The second item is that I've solicited nominations from the University Academic Council for the next Senate President-elect. And I expect to announce the results of that election at the next Senate meeting in November. So I will be able to share that with all of you at the November meeting. Lastly, I want to share with you the Senate office's Senator Spotlight program. So we do have a senator to spotlight this month. So it is Senator Christopher Sharp. Senator Sharp this is his first year as a senator, so I welcome you to the University Senate this year. He is in the Watts College and is a clinical assistant professor in the School of Social Work and is also the director of the Office of American Indian Projects. And he has been working with that office since 2012, and his work focuses on capacity building for American Indian and Alaska Native tribes, nations, and communities. He's a macro-oriented social worker and has a lot of experience in programs and policies. And his current research focuses on addressing the Indigenous health gap in the United States. So if you want to read more about Senator Sharp, please visit the Senate blog on the University Senate website. So again, Senator Sharp, welcome to the University Senate this year. That concludes the UAC Chair's report. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Provost Searle for his report. Provost?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Samin, for the opportunity. I thought I'd highlight a few things, and not just COVID, but I did want to talk about the fact that we want to keep in mind that our Los Angeles building, the former Hearst building in downtown Los Angeles, will be opening this June or July in 2021. And we expect to be launching with that new building a variety of new programs and events. It's a great event space for units to have, whether they're alumni events, donor events, or just speakers and attracting attention to their colleges. And there'll be some degree programs we'll be launching as well. We're working with different units about those right now. And then more over time, obviously, as we gain a foothold there. But that'll be a great opportunity for ASU because we'll have the Washington, D.C. facility, which many of you know has become an enormously attractive facility, so much so we had to rent 7,000 square feet across the street from it to accommodate all the things that are going on there. And the LA building is 5 stories, but the 4th and 5th are pretty small spaces. But there's event space on the first floor. I think it can hold up to about 200 people. There's reception space, as well as some classrooms and some meeting rooms, and I guess, for lack of a better description, hot desks, where if you happen to be in LA and need a place to work, there's a place to do that. And there's also up on the 4th floor, it's more of a quiet space. So people who might be coming up and need some quiet space can find some space up there. So I just think that that's really going to be exciting for us, and I didn't want us to lose sight of some of that positive activity that's going on. In the same notion, we've authorized recruiting for this fall. We've got just about every unit is moving forward with recruiting. I think there's a couple that are still in negotiations with me about some things, but we're happy to get that going. it's important for the institution to constantly bring in people and not allow ourselves to become paralyzed by whether it's a pandemic or anything else. In the recession, for those of you who were here in 8, 9, we even in those years, we never had a year where we hired fewer than 40 new people. So we will continue to recruit and look for some highly talented people. And as you know, under the president's commitments to increase representation of African-American faculty in the university, we're going to be looking for at least 10 of those positions this year, along with many postdocs who will then transition into faculty positions. So our continuing commitment to grow the faculty is there, and we're sustaining that as we go forward. It will be a legacy that I'm happy to leave my successor in a year's time. I also wanted to let you know that you no doubt pay attention to the fact that the federal government issues a number of things from time to time that are some of us find disturbing. And in particular, the Department of Labor and the Department of Homeland Security have issued 2 new rules that will have significant adverse impact on H-1B visa holders, and even trying to get people in with an H-1B visa. So in the first instance, the Department of Labor issued an interim rule that went into effect immediately without an opportunity for comment that affects the calculation of prevailing wages. What this means is that the DHS, the Department of Homeland Security rule, affects the definition of a specialty occupation for an H-1B and goes into effect December 7th, meaning they're going to set salary levels that are way higher than anything we normally pay, or that most universities normally pay. I mean, in some cases, 30, 40% higher. And all that is a way to get us to stop hiring people internationally. So we are a named plaintiff. In fact, I signed the submission last week with several other institutions asking our federal court to enjoin the new DOL interim rule and put a stop to it for now, and allow us to litigate the matter without it going into effect. Give you a sense of the kinds of increases. They would tell us that under this new rule, a postdoc we might hire in biomedical engineering who might be paid now $55,000 would under this rule have to be paid $74,000. So, and there would not be, if this rule goes into effect, we don't have a negotiation position. So, you know, for you know, there's all kinds of things. A lecture would have to go up by $7,000 or $8,000 just overnight. Some over $30,000, just depending upon the discipline. So all these are a great concern for us, and then they would also eliminate a lot of salary categories and make the default salary for anybody $208,000, which, you know, we can't operate that way, nor can any university, honestly. But it's not designed to help us operate. It's designed to inhibit operations in this particular realm. So we've asked for a preliminary injunction, and we have a hearing, I think, on November 13th in the District Court of the District of Columbia. Secondly, we are, as part of the President's Alliance on Immigration, which is a group of university presidents, ASU is part of the litigation filed against the Department of Homeland Security, also in the district of, this time in the District of California, asking the court to enjoin a new rule that changes the definition of a specialty occupation. So these are 2 agencies working together, one to change the occupation name, the other is to increase the pay. All of this is designed ultimately to limit what we're doing in the ability to recruit international postdocs, faculty, or staff. And so we are fighting those things. We are also, and I don't have that information. Oh, I might have just got it. Just one sec. Oh, yes, we're also taking some action, or at least looking at action we might have to take on an executive order that the president issued on restricting the use of diversity training by federal agencies, contractors, and grantees. And it doesn't prohibit all training, but designates a list of 9 specific concepts as divisive and impermissible. Well, we're pursuing this, and it's not clear that this is going into into effect at this point. But we are looking at whatever steps we'll need to take to address this and to deal with this effectively. So I guess wanted to make sure you were aware that these things come out. We don't sit idly by and say, oh, well, we are working at different ways to challenge them at every turn. They are, in our opinion, deleterious to the advancement of the university community and what universities really represent. And so we're working on that. A few other points, because I know you have quite a few speakers today. One is that spring enrollment has opened for continuing students, and the first day of spring enrollment, which was a week ago today, first day enrollment was up 3,000 over this time last year. I hope it continues at that pace, and we'll start getting those regular reports soon. But I can say that over 30,000 students have already registered for Spring A for ASU Online. And so that's also a great sign. So we're certainly seeing some robust opportunities for our students to engage with us. And I know that many of you who have been teaching on campus have both done extraordinary things to help students and to enable student learning. And at the same time, sometimes, no doubt like myself, frustrated you don't see as many students as you'd like to. But we're all going to work on that. I had a discussion with the deans about that this morning. It's a tension because on one hand, we're trying to be as accommodative as possible of all the different issues that all our students have, and how can we help them through this pandemic. And at the same time, how do we ensure that we keep the vibrancy of the campus environment alive and thriving. And so we're working on all those kinds of things, and you know, looking to I've just asked the deans this morning and welcome any of your ideas or suggestions of faculty who are doing innovative things and creative things in this space, because we're trying to profile as many as we can. So we can learn from each other. And I know Suquant has launched some things that are happening online for that as well. But we want to get more publicity out about some of the things that are going on and some of the good things that all of you are doing in that respect. So I hope we can get some information there, and we'll continue to explore how we can achieve that in as effective a way as possible, balancing all the interests that are at stake. We are not adopting the Northwestern or University of Florida approach of simply forcing everybody to come back, including the faculty. Spring break, which is of course an issue for everybody, we'll make sure that that's communicated before the semester is over, so that everybody has plenty of time to know what we're doing about spring break. As I presaged it the last time we met, that this was something that was being discussed, and as needed as it is for all of us to have a kind of a break during that semester, it's also a case of trying to manage the spread of the disease. And to that extent, it's worthwhile noting that we have been incredibly successful. Yesterday's report showed me that there are 70 students in total, on and off campus combined, who currently have COVID. On campus is like 22. So the numbers are extremely low. The students have done a remarkable job, especially the ones living in congregate housing on campuses, of staying away from situations where they were going to get into a problem. And I can only applaud the students for their commitment to do this, because we could have a much different scenario. I know if you're following the news in this respect, you'll see huge outbreaks in a variety of different campuses around the country. Our numbers have gone straight down and have continued straight down since the Labor Day weekend. And so that's a credit to everybody who's working in that respect. On the employee front, we have, I think, 10 employees out of almost 13,000 or 14,000 employees who are COVID positive today. We have no record of any transmission on campus, except among the students in congregate housing. I think generally, the procedures we're taking, the cautions we're taking are remarkable today. It was, as I'm sure everybody's reveling in the cool weather and the wind, and just didn't seem like an Arizona day at all. But as I walked across the Tempe campus today, I thought this wind is great. You can sit out and talk with people, and you don't have to worry so much because that wind is dissipating anything that's moving around. So it was a good day today to be out and about. But I do want to give credit to the students. I think they deserve a lot of credit for adhering to the community of care cautions that we have been promoting, and they have obviously embraced, and our situation could be considerably different. And as we are all watching, we see that the state is not going in the same direction as the university. The state's kind of not going at a high rate of growth, but it's hit that 800, 900 cases, and it's been flat there now for about a week. And it's really important that we're not the contributors to this. This is not us. Plus, we're looking at the zip codes around ASU in Tempe and downtown and our other locations, and we're not seeing where those are particularly high incidence as well. So again, I think we're doing as good a job right now as we might have envisioned, and I'm pleased about that. I also know that there's concerns about implementing the ASU VITA, and I talked to the deans about that this morning because I'm sure there are some units that this is a bigger issue than others. And I learned that there are probably 7 colleges that think that they're in a good shape to probably use it this year because they're pretty much done. But there's a whole lot of others who aren't. So the ones who aren't, and we'll get a note out to clarify, but through the deans to each of their colleges. But any of the ones that aren't will be extended till June, because there's no point in worrying about, we have a calendar year annual review process. So that's fine. But there are units that have said that they can manage. They've been ahead of this, and so we'll certainly respect the different units and their approach to this. Needless to say, some units like the college, which is the largest college, is not ready to move forward this particular year. I know that, and I know that's true also for the College of Integrated Sciences and Arts. But I'm still waiting to hear from some of the other deans on some of the other units. So I'm empathetic to that, and I've also in the process of reminding the deans today. I did it over a week ago in a meeting, but I'm going to send out a note to affirm this, that in actually doing annual reviews, we need everyone to demonstrate a high level of empathy for the circumstances that people have been working with, whether they've been health-related, caregiving, schooling, other kinds of circumstances that they've been faced with because of the unanticipated consequences of the pandemic. And so we're reinforcing that as we go, and think that's an important part of having a community of care, is to be mindful and respectful of those kinds of issues. So let me pause there, and I hope I didn't take too much time.
Thank you very much. That was a lot of information. I appreciate it. Before I turn it over to each of our campuses for questions, I do have one question, and I wonder if you might be able to provide us with an update on the outdoor classroom spaces now that the weather has finally turned a corner And faculty may be interested in holding classes outdoors that may also be attractive to students. What will the process be for faculty who want to be able to, let's say, schedule their classes to be held outside?
Well, thanks. I mean, that's a great question. And I'd almost say it was a setup, but it wasn't. We didn't talk about this, but we don't really have a scheduling process for this fall, but starting in the spring semester where we are in the delightful weather and our colleagues up north, not so much. All the 4 outdoor classrooms on the Tempe campus are schedulable through the normal scheduling system. 2 of them hold about 16 people, 2 of them hold 20 people. They all have Wi-Fi and electricity, but remember, they don't have like a lecture stand or that kind of thing. So you have to think of different ways to use those spaces. But all the campuses have other spaces. I think of at the Poly campus with the beautiful desert foliage and growth they've had over the years, that there are spaces there that can be used outside. There are green spaces, et cetera. And the same in the West Campus when I think of the lawns in front of the library or in front of the athletic facilities. And then the downtown's a little harder because of the noise factor with traffic and so forth. But there are some spaces like between the 2 health buildings that could be used. And there may be other spaces that I'm forgetting about. There's certainly the park. You just have to be mindful of whether the noise is a factor or not. But actually behind, forgetting the name of, what's the name of the building that's across from UCent?
Cronkite,
No, sorry, across First.
AE England building.
Thank you. Behind AE England, there's also some nice space. So those spaces aren't bookable per se, but certainly I think there are spaces that can be used, and I think we should try as best we can to take advantage of those things where appropriate for your courses or activities. It doesn't have to be the class. It could be a class assignment that's out there. It could be something else that's out there. So thanks.
Right. Thank you. So at this time, I'll go around to our campus presidents to see if senators have questions that they'd like to ask Provost Searle. Let's start with Ann Sebren at the downtown campus.
Yes, we have one question from Simon Holzapfel.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Senator Holzapfel.
Thank you. Provost Searle, do you know what those 9 divisive concepts are in the executive order that are not permissible as part of diversity training?
I'd have to look them up, Simon. I don't recall them all. They are enumerated in the list, but we can find that information and get it out to Samin for all of you to see.
No problem. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from the downtown campus?
Yes, there's a question from Senator Maureen McCoy.
Senator McCoy?
I was just wondering how the innovation quarter is coming along and what that looks like, and registration and timing and all of that good stuff.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the question. I should have mentioned that. Last I checked, there were, 40 or more things that I had seen in terms of activities and programs, et cetera, that were being offered. I don't have much information on registration, but I was very glad to see a very diverse set of ideas and concepts and programs that people are promoting. And I think that's wonderful. I hope that our students take advantage of some of those.
Wonderful. Senator McCoy is from my unit, and she's been spearheading an innovation quarter course, and it's very exciting. Any other questions, Anne, from the downtown campus?
No more questions from downtown.
Okay, great. Let's move to the Polytechnic campus. Penny Ann, are there questions?
No, at this time, there are no questions.
All right, thank you. Let's move to the Tempe campus. Greg, are there questions?
Yes, there's a question from Andrea Pittman.
Senator Pittman.
Yes, I'm here. So can you hear me? Yes. So Provost here, at the last speech and hearing science faculty meeting, they asked me to convey a concern and a question. The concern had to do with spring break, and I'm sure you already have heard these concerns and that they're just sort of a little exhausted and hoping to take a break, and some have made financial commitments. So I know that you know about that, so I won't ask for a comment about that. But the question, I think, is more interesting. Looking further into the future, what is the future of the ASU Sync format? Will that be a course format that will be offered after the management of the COVID virus is in hand and we don't need it anymore?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Andrea. My view of ASU Sync is that it's a wonderful success, and we've accommodated students who we otherwise couldn't accommodate. And at the same breath, I worry very much about eroding the whole culture of the university. And so I'm not exactly certain what the future is going to be for remoting into class. I think, where I'm at today, and it may be a little premature, but I think we probably want to have some of it, but on a very restricted basis, meaning students would have to meet certain criteria in order to be eligible to come in that way. Because it seems to me if we just open the door, we don't really achieve all of our purposes as an institution. But there may be circumstances where people are in places where they really cannot come, or they have physical limitations that don't allow them to come as easily as they could do it from home. And we need to think about those students as well as we think about this. So we're going to have to design this carefully going forward, but I think that's a very pertinent question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Greg, are there any other questions from the Tempe campus?
Yes, there's a question from Andrea Pittman.
We just had
I think-
Andrea's question.
Oh, sorry.
Ask and answer.
Sorry. Okay, Paul Carice.
All right, Senator Carice.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Provost Searle. I hope you're well. Long time no see.
Thank you.
The question, you mentioned recruiting and hiring for the coming year, but to my knowledge, there are still some hires that were approved at the dean level in at least our college in the spring that were held up because of general caution. But the colleges and our units, and they have the money for it, but they're still being held up. So is there any decision-making process on that?
Well, I don't know the specifics, Paul. I think what I know is what the dean submitted to me is their hiring plans. So I don't have much deeper insight than that. You have to know that I also have told them to be very cautious about their hiring, because it's still a little early to know how this pandemic is going to play out with vis-a-vis enrollment. I was just looking at a chart today that showed that our revenue from the state taxpayers has, of course, gone down from 2008, where it was about $480 million annually, to today, where it's about 320 or less. But tuition revenue is now in excess of $2 billion. And so the students are indeed the most critical part of our budget planning in many respects. And I think that there's maybe some caution on some of those units about spending, but I don't know the specifics in your case that might be in play. You might register that again with Dean Kenny and see where that's at.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions from the Tempe campus?
No more questions from Tempe.
Thank you. Let's move now to the West campus. Eduardo, are there questions from senators at West?
Just one question. Hi, Mark. Just a question to clarify what you'd said earlier about the VETA rollout. My understanding is that by the end of June, we're all going to have adopted that, but the date by which colleges get there will vary until that date. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, some of the colleges will be going much because they want to use it for this year and feel that they're in a good position to do that. Some others are not. As I said, the college has told me point blank today that they are not in a position to do that. So I'm not interested in having some knockdown, drag them out fight over something as silly as that. So we can wait another year.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
That's it for our questions.
Thank you very much. And Provost Searle, I want to thank you for your comments and your report today. And knowing that this is going to be your last year as the university provost, we are going to try to make the most of our collective time together. So we'll have a few more Senate meetings to share that with you.
Well, I would say only one thing is that July is a long way away. And, and from this chair, really a long way away. And,
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, I had gotten the first of the 2 shingles shots. And so this is my advice to anybody who's over 50. Unfortunately, between the 2 shots, you have to wait at least 60 days, I think it is, between the 2 shots. I managed to get shingles in my right cornea and right ear. So let me tell you, that's not a comfortable position. So if you're of the age, I would get the shot. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's advice well needed. Yes, Maria.
We have one question for Provost Searle from Gilbert Lopez.
Yes.
Gilberto Lopez, I apologize.
Senator Lopez.
Yeah, hi. So I'll make this quick. So my question is, I'm a new faculty member and I'm preparing my courses for the spring. You mentioned that the timeline and the spring break and all that will be out sometime this semester. Can you give us a little bit more detail on what you plan? Is the semester going to be the same length? Is the beginning and the end? That way I could prepare, or we could prepare our lectures and our guests coming into the classroom.
Gilberto, that's a good question. We don't plan to change the length of the semester. We do, if we take out the week, we would end a week earlier, but that would only be because we obviously didn't have the week in March. But we wouldn't change anything else, barring some kind of strange circumstance I can't predict at this moment. But based on this, it would only be to eliminate the travel of students at a time when this virus is still very much around. And the interesting difference that we've observed is that the spring break travel tends to be a lot of vacation travel, as opposed to the Thanksgiving travel, which tends to go home. And so it's even more of a problem for spring break, which is why we're looking at this carefully to try and make a good decision that serves everybody. And we do understand the competing issues here. We do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Provost Searle. At this time, we're going to move to our other.
I think we have one more question here.
Yes, yes.
From Steve Graham.
Senator Graham, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. Some of our faculty posted a question for us to answer. Presentation of course content has been affected dramatically by the shift to online platforms. Therefore, in an effort to support faculty, many universities have put in place provisions to ensure that students' course evaluations will not negatively impact annual evaluations. However, students' evaluations may be used to positive effects. These actions are not to set a precedent, and that's not why we're asking the question, but as a supportive action to show sensitivity and support to faculty during these unprecedented times. So I'm curious about your response to that and if that's a possibility.
We haven't looked at that, Steve, at this particular point in time. But I will say that we did not see that effect in the spring evaluations, where there was kind of undue harshness by the students, nor have we seen it in the summer evaluations. So I'm really cautious here, but it's one of the reasons why I have also asked the deans and the school directors and department chairs to be more generous and thoughtful about their annual evaluations in 2020, because as we all know, this will be a year for the books, and we'll be happy when we get through it. And hopefully 21 will bring us some new opportunities and optimism. But at this point, we haven't considered that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Provost Searle. So at this time, we will move to our other special reports. Before I introduce Mr. Anderson, I'm going to direct senators to the chat to please sign in for your respective campus if you have not already. Thank you very much. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Mr. Ray Anderson, the Vice President for University Athletics. Mr. Anderson, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know that it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride with athletics and with the late decision of the Pac-12 to return to competition. So we welcome your comments and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Samin, and good afternoon, senators. Appreciate the few minutes to essentially update you on what's going on in Sun Devil Athletics. I'll be joined today in our comments. Certainly, Professor Jeffrey Wilson is on, who is our faculty athletic rep. And then our Deputy Athletic Director, Gene Boyd, is here. So with regard to COVID, very frankly, we have been consumed for 8 months. We sponsored 26 varsity sports, 650 student athletes, 89 of whom are international. And so Gene can provide a little more of the outline. But very frankly, the last 8 months for athletics and our student athletes and everyone who supports them, very frankly, has been exhaustive, in large part because we tend to be of the personalities, coaches and administrators, and certainly our very competitive student athletes, where you're very routine. You have real schedules. You have this sense that you are very strong, and at some point, some folks think they're invincible. But COVID taught us very quickly that, you know what, you have very little control over your lives, and it has been so fluid. So every athletic director that I know, no matter how many years he or she has been in this business, will tell you that the last 8 months have been the most challenging of their careers. From the very beginning, and Gene has a timeline, on March 12th, we were in Las Vegas in the middle of starting the men's basketball tournament. The women's tournament was getting underway. We had several teams poised to be going to the NCAA postseason, looking to make some real noise. And then one day, March 12th, we were told to cease and desist all athletic activity and return to Tempe ASAP. We had a gymnastics team that was in flight on the way to Baton Rouge. They touched down and never left the airport. We're told to return. We had a softball team that was on the bus going to UCLA. They were told to turn around in Blythe and head home. And literally within 24, 48 hours, their world in terms of their athletic pursuits came to a screeching halt. And one of the things that we were most concerned about, because those of you who have participated in competitive athletics, and certainly at the college level, know that you spend literally years preparing for the opportunity to play varsity sports at an elite level, and hopefully also be able to earn an academic scholarship so you can do both at an elite level. And when all of a sudden that opportunity on the athletic side comes to a screeching halt, it is pretty traumatic. So from the beginning, when we knew we were going to have to deal with COVID-19, and we were apprised very quickly that it was going to be a long haul, the number one thing in our minds was the health and safety of our student athletes, including their mental health, would guide us every step of the way. So the Pac-12 very quickly put together a very prominent group of scientists, infectious disease experts, epidemiologists from our various universities. It was our medical advisory working group, the presidents and chancellors, the ADs, the coaches, student athletes, and support personnel were consistently advised by the scientists and the medical folks what our situation was. And so as we moved along, if there's one thing the Pac-12 did extremely well was communicate. And so we were not going to be driven in our decisions by what other conferences were deciding they were going to do. And we, in fact, were going to be driven by the medicine and the science. And our presidents and chancellors, certainly in large part led by Dr. Crow, made it very clear unequivocally that we would not waver from that commitment. So as time went on, it became very clear that the Pac-12 was going to make their decisions based on 3 criteria. First of all, the spread of COVID in our communities. We had different areas, Arizona, California, Washington, particularly early, as you know, were extreme hotspots. We had different counties in different states who had different approaches to what they were going to allow in terms of return to play. So the spread in our Pac-12 footprint was very important. Also, what was very important, and we were not going to move until we knew we had the appropriate testing, capacity, and quantity of testing that could give us the assurance that in terms of our student athletes, they would have appropriate testing so that our risk could be mitigated. And then early on, there were a lot of concerns about the heart impact that COVID could have on the heart, particularly the condition called myocarditis. And so when these things were being examined and evaluated, ultimately our presidents and chancellors determined that we were not going to go forward with our fall seasons. We weren't canceling, but we were postponing. And we would not compete until January unless and until there was enough advances in the medicine and the science to give us some comfort that in fact we could go forward and protect our student athletes. And it has been a long, dusty, tough road, but we got to a point whereby we determined, because of the daily testing that was made available to us through a agreement with this company called Quidel, that we could do daily antigen testing for our high contact sports. And that in fact, with the protocols, we could semi-bubble our student athletes and their coaches and their operations personnel to kind of shield them away from the real world as best we can. And we've been able to do that with some success. And so on November 7th, we're supposed to start the football season, having had a 6-week ramp up. Basketball, men's and women, and the other fall sports are also now in training, hopefully getting ready to compete over the course of the next several weeks. But one thing is for sure, there is nothing guaranteed, and we take nothing for granted, because we have 18 to 22-year-olds. And the biggest challenge we have and the sleepless nights are they going to be able to maintain the protocols to keep us safe and keep us out of harm's way, so that we don't get the test and all of a sudden we're quarantining, and all of a sudden we're isolating, and all of a sudden we don't have a roster. And so the student athletes have been given a lot of responsibility, so have the coaches and personnel, to maintain your bubble. And it's asking a lot, again, for 18 to 22-year-olds to essentially refrain from a normal college life. But they're doing a good job so far. So far, but every day, as Gene can give a little more insight, is a test of will, and a test of discipline, and a test of focus, because there's not a perfect world out there. And we are hopeful, but we cannot guarantee you that we're going to be able to complete all these sports. We are hopeful, and thus far we're doing a good job but it's a test every day. Gene will also share with you, unfortunately, that because of the COVID situation, we're going to be competing primarily without fans in football and certainly in basketball and the other sports for the time being. We may take a look in January is what the thought is now. But unless and until we get a little more clarity there, we could play a whole season in all the sports without fans, except for maybe some parents and some coaches, spouses. But we'll do what we do to kick off and tip off and drop the puck and drop the soccer ball and do what we need to do to try to get this competition underway. I'll take some questions later, but Gene, do you want to give a little more substance, being sensitive to time?
I will go ahead real quickly. Just a couple of slides that give a little bit more of an outline in terms of what the thoughts and practical implications and implementations were moving forward. One being that the health and safety of our student athletes needed to remain at the forefront of our decision making the entire time. Ray already mentioned that from a national and in local experience, certainly within the conference, the experts in infectious disease and otherwise were balancing constantly disease spread and also the ability to appropriately train for sport participation in enough timely fashion to not have a overload of injuries for student athletes once they came back. And from March through June 15th, there was no organized activities whatsoever athletically within our facilities on campus in any way, shape, or form. As testing became more available, PCR-wise, certainly on a local level for us, we were able in the month of June to move towards some structured workouts for football, men's and women's basketball, soccer for our women, and volleyball, which are fall sports for us. And those individuals with many different protocols, lots of sanitation, cleaning after each set in the workout rooms, one directional flow in and out of the building, no showering in facilities. The student athletes would have to go home to shower, taking every precaution that CDC and our experts were communicating could help, number one, prevent, if you see on this overview page, prevent the spread of disease. We implemented testing on a weekly basis for all those student athletes. If there was a positive of a student athlete, we would do extensive contact tracing immediately locally, not waiting for the state contact tracing to happen, because it was so important to ensure that we were isolating and then supporting those who may have become infected. And then, of course, with the contact tracing, there were individuals who would need to be quarantined for up to 14 days. So we cut no corners in that regard. In fact, we were probably more strict, certainly at the early going. And it wasn't until much later in the summer where we thought there may be a hint of an opportunity to actually participate, that we fully reconvened the football team in particular, but then several of our other sports in that regard. We are currently in a situation where, as Ray mentioned, we have daily antigen testing. If someone were to get a positive antigen test, they would then do a PCR test behind it that would confirm that positive, understanding that PCR is certainly the high standard, the gold standard of testing, if you will. And then there are certainly protocols. We have actually found a few cases where someone who was found to have COVID in, let's say, early June, has had a second test positive for COVID 3 months later or so. And so there are actually some research opportunities here, which is why Quidel wanted to get involved as a corporation to understand better what these things all mean. But again, to the precaution, we are managing these cases as they come forward with only the physicians in guidance as it relates to decision making about participation. And as Ray said, we are primed within the next 2 weeks to be able to take and this is how it will work for the entire season for football, for example. On Friday, anyone who gets on the plane to go to Los Angeles will have to have a negative test result before boarding the plane. Then when we get into Los Angeles and get situated as well, there'll be another test late that evening for the game day tomorrow. For the next day, because it's a 9:00 a.m. game start. So there are 2 tests that will have to be, returned with negative in order to participate. And all the meanwhile, we'll be doing 2 PCR tests per week, in addition to the daily antigen testing on any day that there will be high risk contact in that regard. There are protocols with all the rest of our sports. I won't go into any of that right now. But other sports such as wrestling and soccer and so forth, which have this high risk or this high contact element to them, have higher protocols than, say, a cross country student athlete would, who is not interacting with each other from a touching standpoint and so forth. So that level of detail has gone into each and every one of our sports and how we've evaluated the protocols for them in that regard. So I'll pause there if there are any questions, and then Professor Wilson has a few slides as it relates to student athlete well-being that we'll cover.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of information. It's wonderful to see that the health and welfare of our student athletes are the highest priority. I'd like to now turn it over, before we open it up for questions for Ray and Jean, if Dr. Wilson can go ahead and provide his report. And I also want to congratulate Dr. Wilson on the announcement just this afternoon on his appointment as the co-chair of the new Advisory Council on African American Affairs at ASU. Congratulations on that appointment, Dr. Wilson. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. Dr. Wilson is the faculty athletics representative for ASU to the Pac-12.
Whilst all of this is going on, it's always important to worry about the student mental health. So along with the mental health and the performance in academics, we had constant communication on a weekly basis with people in the student health. We had SAP always meet every 2 weeks, but on top of that, we had additional meetings. We also had Zoom meetings with the various teams. We had Bill Kennedy was working around the clock, making sure that the food comes in the right place and all the different things in the correct place. Along with that, if you don't recall, we had racial injustice. And the student athletes are the ones not being prompted by anyone, but in the NCAA, in the Pac-12, they created several webinars where they presented their ideas about racial injustice. And you would really be surprised to see how 4 student athletes, 1 or 2 of them might be Black and the rest white, and they will talk candidly about these kind of issues, all along with the COVID-19 going on, and all along with the fact that they cannot do what they like best, which is play the sport on a regular basis. So we were really concerned about the mental health. We had other things going on this last week. We had both a member from the Democratic and the Republican, our Arizona Senate House, come here and talk to them about voting, talk to them about not presenting one side or the other, but just talk to them how these 2 individuals work together in some tough times to present results that was good for both. Of course, along this line, you want to know what happened. My big concern was, oh my goodness, all the things that we have accomplished here at ASU with the academics, will it go through, will it go to the dogs? But when we looked at it, the performance they had some all-time high performances. And so that to me was very good, because I know that a student athlete performs even better when they are in season, and things hardly get, things outside of athletics hardly will get them off track. So it was important to me to see how the academic progress, how the graduation rates, and as even with the African American students, the graduation rates, which you might be interested to know. In the Pac-12, we are third in the Pac-12 in that respect. And of course, as a woman, we always have a struggle. Remember that, men? But the women are just knocking out the park in all areas. Then, as I say, our well-being, our student athletes also has a group of student athletes that where we concentrate. They work with all 12 campuses, work together on this one. And they have also the Pac-12 gave out some grants and so on that will encourage the 12 campuses working together and sharing results that will help to the benefit of all. If you don't know, we lost a student athlete at Washington State at the beginning of this year. It looked so long. It was this year. And that football player had some issues. And what that did, it brought to the forefront all the different challenges that student athletes have. And we brought that to the forefront, and to help in certain ways, the Pac-12 gave out grants, as I say, where the 12 universities will work together. So I know it's a tough time. It's a tough time. But I think our student athletes are in the right place. Some people ask, why, as Ray made it a point, why go back in the field? Well, one, I want you to know that I love athletics, but I put the academics ahead and the student well-being. And so I look out any decisions that are made. I look for the student well-being. I look both in the academic and the mental health. And what we have done here in athletics, you got to be proud of, because Dr. Crow, which is a very important voice in the Pac-12, is very active. And Ray, who is also came from the NFL, he's very active and brought people that knows about the sport and encourage that in the Pac-12. So I think we are in the right space. And people come up to me and say, well, why is SEC playing and why Big 12 playing? Well, we allow science to decide our decision. And if you think the athletic department, they do not make decisions on when to play or not to play. The person that makes the decision is the president, and the president makes it with the help of the doctors. And so the athletic department, they just sit on the sideline and they wait. I'm sure they want to play, but Ray, I know he will not let them play unless those things are together. But it's not his decision. It goes all the way up with the president. So I think we are in a good space. I don't want to take much more time, but I want to convince you as you leave here that we are in a good space. We make the right decisions. We don't make the decision based on dollars and cents. We make it all based on people's health, the kids' health, and the kids' academic.
Dr. Wilson, thank you very much for that. And again, to see the prioritization and the emphasis on our student athletes' well-being and of all students within the ASU community is always first and foremost. At this time, I'd like to open it up for questions, and I'll move around to our campuses. Let's start with Ann Sebren at the downtown campus. Ann, are there any questions for Ray or Jean or Dr. Wilson?
There are no questions from senators at this time, but I'd like to ask a question of whoever might be able to respond regarding not allowing fans to come to the games, which I am personally in support of. But I'm curious what data or what information informed that, given what we see in other stadiums and other, conferences, and the number of in the stands and whether or not there's been some evidence of detrimental outcomes as a result of fans in the stands.
I'll take that in the first instance, Ann. If it was up to the athletic directors, so long as the local authorities said you could do it, we would love to have fans. But it's the local health authorities, for instance, and we're in different markets. In California, they've made it emphatically clear to the colleges, there will be no fans, including parents of players. And they have determined, we were on an athletic directors meeting again today, and we have 3 of them a week to talk about this subject matter. Southern California has made it very clear to SC and UCLA, there won't be fans in their view at all this season. Same in Northern California. Oregon and Washington are trending this morning into the same direction because it's all driven by what's the community spread, what's happening in your jurisdiction, if you will. And so it's not us, it's not the Pac-12 per se. We have to go as we had to before we could get the go ahead to start in a lot of these counties. We had to wait on the local authorities, and they just have different viewpoints. But that's the driver, and so we'd love to have fans, but right now the authorities say the conditions don't justify it, and we're not granting. And they have made a differentiation between the professionals and the amateurs. So for instance, in Northern California and Southern California, the pro teams have more leeway. They have determined they are not giving it to K through 12 nor higher education.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's move next to the Polytechnic campus. Penny, are there questions?
There are none from the senators, but if I may, I do have a question. I believe, I'm not sure if, which one of you had mentioned it about the rapid testing for the athletes. And I guess my question is that the rapid testing that relatively rapid testing that we have now, or are you talking about what's in the process of being developed for ASU, like a test that can come back in an hour or 2? I'm just curious, what was the rapid testing you were referring to?
I'll take that one, Ray. And it is the antigen testing that has been noted nationally. There's PCR, which is becoming more rapid in a lot of places. I think we have some opportunities even locally for some more same-day returns on PCR tests. But antigen testing is the 15 to 45-minute response time. It is noted as not being as reliable and as effective as the PCR, which is the gold standard, so to speak. But it has a high rate of relatively high results, high quality results. But just not as near 100% as PCR testing would provide. And so even when you impart that, you still are required to incorporate PCR testing as part of the regimen over the course of time. And then your outcome of a positive antigen test is backed up by a PCR test as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's a great question. Thank you. Let's move next to the Tempe campus. Greg, are there questions from the
yes.
Tempe campus?
Yes, Robert Wood would like to make a comment.
Senator Wood.
Yeah, I'd just like to say one thing. I teach the freshman computer course in the College of Business, and we have about 4,000 students a year that take the course. And as a group, I guess I want to commend Raymond and Jean and Jeffrey. The athletes demonstrate a remarkable level of maturity and responsibility towards their work. I mean, they definitely are the group in the class with whom we have no problems whatsoever. And I think this discipline that they get from competing in sports really carries over into their academics. So it's not a situation, in my opinion, where athletics and academics compete. I think they complement each other very well. I just want to appreciate what you guys are doing.
Well, we really appreciate that. I inherited a really top-notch Office of Student Athlete Development when I came here 7 years ago, led by Gene Boyd and some of his colleagues, and certainly with the assistant Professor Wilson and others. So I certainly applaud the work that's been done over the years, and Gene and his folks have made it clear. And you know, Senator Wood, we've made it very clear that ASU, with the likes of Barrett and where we've come over the course of the last few years, you know, we're an academic institution. You know, our APR standing in the Pac-12 over the course of the last few years is second only to Stanford. And so we are attracting students who want to be academically challenged, just like they want to be athletically challenged. So thank you for the comments, because that is by design. And Gene and Dr. Wilson certainly deserve more credit than I. I've been a beneficiary of their good work.
Well, don't change your design.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wood, and I will echo Senator Wood's sentiment. I'm in the College of Health Solutions, and we attract a lot of student athletes to the various degree programs that we offer, and many of them are Barrett Honors students, and they are just as competitive and dedicated in respect to their academic performance as they are to their athletic performance. Any other questions from the Tempe campus?
That's everything from Tempe.
Thank you very much. Let's move next to the West Campus. Eduardo, are there any questions from the West Campus?
I don't see any questions from our senators, but I do have a question about how aerosol is going to be mitigated. I'm reflecting back on my own youth when I played contact sports too many years ago, and trying to imagine what it would be like to wrestle, for example, or to play football, particularly on the line, and not breathe on the other person. How is that going to be mitigated for our students?
Professor Pagan, it's Gene Boyd, and part of the timeline that discussed why our experts, our medical experts in the conference, were uncomfortable with the athletes moving forward in the contact sports is exactly that concern, and why our conference chose, unlike others, to postpone moving into that next phase until we could get more of an assurance that each day, as the student athletes go out onto the practice fields or courts, that they're going out there without infection. And that's where the daily testing came in, with the additional PCR testing on top of it, to make sure that people are not sick who are engaged in that type of activity. Initially, you had the idea that you could wear a mask and a face shield and all these different things and participate in. People quickly found out that, you know, you're trying to breathe and people were practically inhaling these masks. I mean, there was all kind of challenges. And so the daily testing is really the only way. And if someone does test positive, you know, somehow or another there's a misread or someone tests positive, they're pulled immediately. Everyone is tested again. And then, you know, the quarantining happens that needs to. But the idea is to keep people from getting out to the field of play or out to practice who would be infected.
All right, thank you. That certainly makes sense. I was trying to imagine trying to play with a mask on, and I could not grasp that. We do have a question from Senator King.
Senator King.
Yes, hi. I have a question based on Eduardo's question, in fact. And Gene, you said that the tests have to be, if a student tests positive, they will not be allowed to play. We all know that negative tests can be false. We might have a player who really tests negative, goes on the field, and gets other people infected. This, in fact, it's not like this is not a hypothetical situation. In fact, my neighbor who delivered a child went for a test for the pediatrician for the first visit she left the house, and the nurse practitioner didn't know that she thought she tested negative, and the mom now is, instead of celebrating the birth of a baby, is COVID positive. So we do not, like, we all know negative tests can be not accurate. So what would your response to that be?
And one of the factors of the testing is not to rely on a simple, a singular type of test. So the antigen testing, which is daily versus every few days or every week or so forth, it's daily. And in addition to that, at least one time per week, and in some cases multiple times per week, there are PCR tests assigned as well to the student athletes. So we've got two separate types of testing, one of them happening every single day. And we've learned that for the most part, you can have a pretty high level of assurity that someone is not going to be out there who has contracted COVID. Although you can't say anything is 100%, right? And so you have to continue to take every precaution. So when the student athletes, even who are testing daily and doing the PCR testing regularly, when they are in their meetings or even when they're doing weightlifting, they are still wearing masks and they are still distanced. So it's not just the fact that you're getting testing we're relying upon totally. We are physically distancing as much as we possibly can outside of the time period when they are in actual practice. Distancing and mask wearing is still just as much of a factor as the testing is. So for example, as we travel over to Los Angeles next week on the plane, everyone will be in a mask. There will be no one in the center seats. And that will be in the case the entire time they're in the hotel together and everything else.
And the second, thank you, Jean. The second thing is a comment. I really would like to applaud you guys for all the precautions you are taking. And I think having no fans in the fields is really a wise decision. We don't want super spreader events. Our country is back to having more cases than anyone else in the world. So I really thank you for being conscientious and for not caving to the pressure of some people's love for watching the games. We can watch our players play it and we can root for them while protecting the safety of the people in the audience. So thank you so much for that decision. It's really wise. Thank you.
And Senator King, also, it is essential personnel only around our student athletes and our coaches. And so there won't be extraneous people anywhere near our teams. You're there to compete and that's it. So when you go to the hotel, typically you would have visitors. You might go out to dinner. You might have a little free time with your family the night before the game when you have some free time. None of that will be accommodated this year. And so you won't have the president, you won't have the athletic director, you won't have the provost traveling and being around the team unless you want to take all the testing that goes with it in isolation that goes with it leading up to the competition. So very strict all around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Once again, Ray and Jean and Jeffrey, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedules to join the University Senate meeting. And if it's all right with you, if questions should come in after this meeting, if we could direct them to you, that'd be great.
Please do. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.
For the opportunity.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
We have one additional special report, and that is from Downtown Campus President Ann Sebrin, and she is going to provide us with a report from the last Arizona Board of Regents meeting. I'll turn it over to Ann at this time. Thanks, Ann.
I just lost my report. Of course. Hold on. Where'd it go? Sorry about that. The Arizona Board of Regents met on October 2nd, and the meeting began with a positive statement by Regent Penley acknowledging the role of universities in driving the Arizona economy and outlining a rationale for a substantial request from ABOR for investment in the universities from the Arizona legislature. There was also some discussion about the search for the new president of Northern Arizona University. And there is a way to provide some comments from the community on the, there was a website for the NAU president search. And of course, they are welcoming comments from the community in relation to that. There was also some clarity that there will be a number of faculty that will serve on that search committee. With regard to ASU, the capital improvement plan was approved, including the Mesa Center project. And there was a report from each campus on the status of COVID testing cases and policies. And at that time, positivity rates on all campuses were going down. All of the campuses were working with both campus and community police on conduct issues, particularly related to COVID policies. All universities have significant COVID-related research underway, and there was a good deal of discussion about the collaboration between and among the three universities on the COVID research at these institutions. All three universities are working with some form of a health check and or tracing app. And they all reported, all three universities reporting that the COVID spread is occurring from mostly off-campus activities. And at that time, which I think Provost Searle again echoed today, there was little to no evidence of transmission between faculty and students in the classroom and or on campus public spaces. President Crow did give a report to ABOR, really emphasizing to ABOR the strong enrollment that we have at ASU. We have over 128,000 degree-seeking students, over 100,000 students in other types of learning environments associated with ASU. And there was some discussion of some of the strategies that are being employed regarding the international students with adaptations to course schedules and ways to allow students to enroll and begin their studies at ASU, even if they have to remain in their home country at this time. And he also emphasized to ABOR that our retention at that time was close to our 2019 levels. And he also reported to ABOR about the strong and substantive research submissions that continue to be ongoing from ASU. There was also a pretty substantive report given to ABOR from the student regents regarding the food and housing insecurity work group that Samin mentioned earlier. The student regents really emphasized to ABOR, I won't repeat what she said about the focus of that work group, but the student regents really emphasized to ABOR the opportunity for ABOR to become a national leader in this particular area. And that's really all I have for my report on the ABOR meeting.
Thank you very much for that report, and for senators who are interested in seeing the public session of the ABOR meeting. It is available on the Arizona Board of Regents website, so you can go to that and fill 3 or 4 hours of free time watching the regents discuss in meeting. So thank you very much. Okay, so we have no unfinished business at this time, so we will move directly to new business, beginning with first reads to prepare for our November meeting. At this time, I'll turn it over to Denise Bodman. She is chair of CAPC. Denise?
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. We have no CAPC motions for first reads. Yay. However, I do ask all the senators to look at Appendix A for information related to concentration changes. These don't require first and second reads, but it is good for you to just be aware that these changes are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denise. It's unusual. Typically, this time of the academic year, we have a host of first reads. So it is quite unusual that we don't have any this year. No complaints. Okay. So we will now address motions that are second reads and action items. The new course proposals were distributed to you via email on October 13th and are presented to you as a consent agenda. Is there a request to move any course for further consideration from the new course proposal consent agenda? Hearing no request, we will then move forward to vote on the course proposal consent agenda. Maria, can you please prepare the vote?
Voting members only, please.
And please keep the results open for our Senate Secretary to record them.
Okay, ending the poll. The motion passes with 98%, which is 103 votes.
Thank you very much. CAPC has two motions related to curricular proposals for your consideration, also brought as a consent agenda. Denise, can you please share those?
All right, these two motions, which was the shortest meeting in the history of Earth. These two motions were motion 2021-06, a request from Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, School of Sustainable Engineering and the Built Environment for the disestablishment of a graduate degree. Motion 2021-07, request from the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College, Division of Educational Leadership and Innovation for the establishment of a graduate degree. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Is there a request for either of these motions to be removed from the consent agenda in order to have further discussion? Hearing no such requests, we will move forward to vote on the consent agenda. Maria, can you please prepare the vote?
There you go. Voting members only.
Thank you.
Okay, ending the poll. The motion passes with 99%, which is 102 votes.
Thank you very much. We do have two Senate committee reports. The first report is going to be from the Student Faculty Policy Committee. Chairperson Scott Day will provide that report. Senator Day. Are you with us?
Oh, there we go. Hello, everyone. Scott Day, WPC Cary. Can we get to the first slide, please? And the next slide, yeah. So just a reminder, a reminder, not a lesson. The purpose of our committee is to serve as a policy forming and advising capacity for student conduct, as well as student organizations and all related student activities. We are working on a bunch of RFCs, but I just want to highlight three important things that we're doing right now. Next slide, please. One of the things, and thank you all, we have gotten some great responses with regards to the voting barrier removals. And this is just a reminder that, it's a week away, and we really encourage, and there's some departments that were really excited about this, really encourage not to have any activities. As you can see throughout the United States, we have students all throughout the United States, and it could be detriment if they're standing in line, et cetera. Next slide, please. The other thing we're working on, as you probably have heard, is food insecurity update. ABAR is head on this, and they're excited about it, and we're pushing it. And so they even come up with a definition for a food insecurity, and the student regions have a directive project for what they're doing this year. We are part of that as well. Next slide, please. As far as what we're doing here at the ASU, and I have to give credit where credit is due. Both other campuses, especially the University of Arizona and Northern Arizona, are far ahead of us. And if there's anything I can do this year with regards to that, is to close that gap as quickly as possible. We are doing a number of things, but I think with regards to ABAR's commitment to this, it's gonna ignite us, and you're gonna see some whole new things that we're doing. We're obviously doing a bunch of things as far as community care, restrictions, looking for resources, and expanding our food bank connections. Next slide. I've asked Maria, I've gotten a contact from a research group that wants to know what faculty and staff think about food insecurity. So rather than spend a lot of time on this, I'm going to ask Maria to add this to the minutes, and you can cut and paste it when you report to your department. Next slide. And finally, we've been approached by the student organizations, and for some reason, because most of us are not on campus, they are really struggling for faculty advisors. And I think this would be a fantastic year to be a faculty advisor, considering that most of the meetings are probably all of the meetings are remote, and this would be a good idea. They're really struggling because we're not on campus, and they're usually a word of mouth thing. So rather than spend much time on this, I'm going to also ask Maria to add this to the meeting notes, and you can cut and paste that and share that with your department. And that is my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. If anyone would like to, again, forward that resolution that was passed last spring to remove voting barriers, it is on the University Senate website. And you can also reach out directly to Senator Day for that and any of the other items that he discussed. In lieu of opening it up to questions for Mr. Day, I'm going to move on to our next Senate committee report, and then we can have questions and move into our open forum. So the next report is from the Digitally Enhanced Teaching and Learning Ad Hoc Committee. Chair Lisa Kammerlocher is going to provide that report.
Do we have the slides? Ah, great. So we're going to be giving a regular report from this point on. We call ourselves DEDL, but we're the Ad Hoc Committee on Digitally Enhanced Teaching and Learning. Next slide. So these are our members, and for the sake of time, I'll just let you read them. And we'll have a link to the PDF of these slides later on. We have really great ex officio members. They've already been very helpful in helping us take some low-hanging fruit and try to affect some change. One of the biggest ones was around the kind of training that's going to be offered for faculty that's more peer-to-peer than technology person to faculty person. So let's go ahead and move forward. So we have a number of roles, and I have to say that we've been meeting since June or July, and we, had a resolution last year that created our ad hoc committee. So we've really been trying to get our bearings to try to figure out what the issues are and try to figure out how we can positively affect this issue for faculty. So we definitely want to be advocating for faculty and APs in terms of having a voice in decision-making around learning technologies. We want to identify and inform faculty about the new teaching and learning technologies. UTO is a big place for that, Ed+. And we know there's activity going on in the schools and colleges. We don't have a lot of information about those details, but hopefully we'll learn more as we go. Facilitating and promoting communication to and from faculty APs to our group so that we can help everyone have a better understanding of what's going on. We plan to have a dashboard, regular Senate reports like this. And then we've developed a comment question form. So if you have something that just strikes your mind and you want to let us know something that's of concern or interest to you, maybe you know of a new technology, whatever the case may be, we have this form that you'll be able to use for that purpose. Promoting peer training, we've learned that faculty appreciate that kind of training. And then we haven't gotten into this a lot yet, but we know it exists, is the different resource issues that occur across the university. Some people have instructional designers, some people don't. Not sure how we're going to get into all of those issues, but definitely want to take a look at them. So next slide. So here's an example of the kind of thing you can expect from us. So being in the know with technology and Pearson is a really big, important one. And there's been several emails about this the last few weeks, but there's an opportunity for faculty to opt in. And if they have a textbook that works for their course, you can find out if you do through the links provided here. And there's a form to submit to opt in that has to be done by the end of this week. Digital portfolios, this is a big discussion going on right now. They've gone ahead and extended for 1 year the portfolio software we have, but there has been concern that it's not flexible enough for all of the needs that people have across the university, namely that it doesn't support anything that's non-text. So if you would like to provide feedback, there's a link here. Also, anything that you would like to have in a portfolio tool. And then there's also a Slack channel that's being started by Allison Hall. And so you can also join that Slack channel if you wish. Next slide. And Kyle Bowen wanted me to make sure that you knew about these 3 technologies that are really great for improving interaction in your courses. PlayPosit, where you can embed interactions and knowledge checks within a video. VoiceThread, which is a free online presentation tool that enables you to put a lot of different kinds of documents or files into a presentation. And then the faculty member and students can engage with that and provide feedback or have dialogue. And then YellowDig, which we all know helps promote discussion in courses. Next slide. And for your students, they now have access to Adobe Creative Cloud. And this is an opportunity, I think, for all faculty to be able to think about what kind of outputs do I want my students to have? How do I want them to represent the knowledge that they've been gaining in my course? And this is a very powerful suite of tools to help them with that. And faculty can also ask to get this tool. So they just had, I believe it was Adobe Max, and I'm sorry I don't have a link in here, but Adobe Max was a conference last week where they had a lot of people, entertainers and technology folks and all kinds of people who are creators. And they talk about the impact of these tools. And there were a lot of really great ideas shared there. So you could probably look that up on the web and get some ideas. And finally, let's move to the next slide. So we want to know, we're, as I've said, in a, to some degree in discovery mode. And so we want to know what's on your mind. Oh, Penny Dolan put Adobe Max into the chat. So that's really great to have access to. And yes, it was an excellent creative conference. So what's on your mind regarding teaching and learning? What ideas do you have? What's not working quite right for you? What do you want to learn about? We can help with the communication about that, and we're very excited by this opportunity. So we have a form here that I mentioned earlier, and we would love to hear from you. So we'll be here every month, and if there's something in particular you'd like us to cover, let us know. Thank you much.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Maria, for sharing that slide deck. And if we could put the link to the form, I see you've done that in the chat as well. So if you could maybe even just separate the link for senators to be able to submit their questions or their ideas, that'd be terrific. At this time, we'll move into the open forum part of our Senate meeting. So I will move around to the different campuses for the open forum. Senators may ask questions, make statements, or present topics of interest to the Senate at this time. Let's start with the downtown campus. Anne, do you have anything for the open forum?
There's a question from Senator Stephanie Downey.
Senator Downey, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I have a quick question / observation for Lisa, who just gave her presentation. We recently received an email from Provost Searle on October 20th regarding a new sort of teaching experience that will be held. I think there are about 5 different meetings scheduled thus far. And if I remember correctly from the email, they are planning on some for early spring. And one of the things that I noticed, this particularly stood out to me because as a lecturer, I'm teaching faculty, is that this series, every meeting thus far has been scheduled at 1:30 on a Wednesday, which is prime teaching time. So it makes it very difficult for people whose main job at the university is teaching to take advantage or be a part of these conversations. And I am aware that they're going to be recorded, but it seems to me that the whole MO is about dialogue, and there won't be dialogue for quite a few people who are teaching for ASU because of the scheduling of these events. So I would just like to ask, maybe Lisa, I don't know if this is in your purview, but to perhaps bring up the subject of alternating scheduling these events so that we have, say, people who are Monday, Wednesday, Friday could attend one, and then maybe the next one, people who are Tuesday, Thursday could attend one. I mean, myself, actually, I teach Monday through Friday at that time. So I won't be able to participate in any that are scheduled at that time on any day. But most people, I don't think, teach Monday through Friday at that time. So I just would like to encourage the committee to try to keep that in mind for perhaps for, I know it's unrealistic to ask the current schedule to be adjusted, but perhaps for the spring, any sessions that are scheduled for that series for early spring, that there might be a little bit more variety in terms of when those sessions are scheduled. Is that a possibility? Do you know, Lisa?
This for Dreamscape, do you think? Is that the one?
No, this is
Oh, it's the
for
conversation.
this is for the teaching experience conversation series.
Right, okay. So Kyle and Saquant are the ones who put that together, and they are on our group. And so we would be happy to share with them that a more diverse schedule would be better for reaching more faculty.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Sure.
so much. It's a
We're
great
happy to do
initiative.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really commend them for, they really took some feedback just from some general early conversations we had. And really, I really appreciate them trying to put something together that's different than what they've done before.
I appreciate it too. I just would like more people to be able to participate.
Sure,
So thank you.
for sure.
Thanks
Thank
a
you,
lot.
Stephanie.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Anne, are there any other questions or comments from the downtown campus?
No other questions at this time.
Thank you. Let's move next to the Tempe campus. Greg, are there questions or comments from Tempe?
Yes, David Wells has a question.
Senator Wells, the floor is yours.
So it's not really a question, it's an issue I'd like the Senate to bring up with the idea that we become in solidarity with the faculty senate at the University of Arizona. In August, the University of Arizona announced that they would purchase Ashford University for $1. This is very similar to the Kaplan deal that Purdue has done. The model, Ashford charges about the same as ASU Online does, but they almost exclusively hire adjunct faculty who get paid very, very little. And the goal of U of A appears to be to purchase this and milk it for profits and not serve students very well. And this private university is already under some sanction under WASC. Next week, they're going to look at this particular merger and whether they're going to agree to it or not. But typically, these are students who take loans out from the Department of Education, are veterans from the VA, and very often they're not able to pay them back because they get an inadequate support. And this is just seems to be very unethical by the University of Arizona. So the faculty, I've been in contact with Gary Rhodes, who's the member of the Senate, who's been leading things at the U of A, and he's shared a number of documents with me. And I would like to see, as soon as possible, that our Senate connect with their Senate and put forward a resolution of joining with them in our concerns, because it doesn't look like that the regents are going to do anything about this. President Penley of the Regents has his own history related to these things at Colorado State University when he was the president there. So anyway, that's my request that we do this. And again, the goal of U of A, if they were to get their way, is to get this approved by December, get it finished by December. And the reason they want to get that done, based on the information I have, is that if Biden wins the presidency, they want DeVos to bless the marriage before Biden takes office. And that doesn't smell very good to me either.
Senator Wells, I appreciate those comments, and you raised something that's very interesting. And some of these issues that you've raised have been in discussion within the Academic Faculties Council, which is the Senate leadership at all three institutions. And what I'd like to do, the chair of the AFC this year is the Senate president at the University of Arizona, is to discuss this with her and request perhaps putting it on one of the upcoming AFC agendas for us to carry on that discussion. But yes, there are a lot of issues surrounding Ashford University. Are there any other questions or comments from the Tempe campus?
Yes, Michelle Hale has an announcement.
Senator Hale, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to make quick mention that ASU will commemorate Native American Heritage Month in November. And there will be a number of events hosted by Native American campus clubs and organizations, including an art show, a community food drive, and even a panel discussion about Thanksgiving. So hopefully the link can be shared in the chat, but I encourage everyone to get out there and support our ASU Indigenous community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And if there's additional information that we could post on the University Senate website and links that we could include for some of these events, we'd be happy to do that. And you can share those with Senate Manager Maria Coca. Thank you for that, Senator Hale. Any other questions or comments from Tempe?
No, we're all set here in Tempe. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, let's move next to the Polytechnic campus. Anne, are there any questions or comments?
No, it's been rather quiet at the Polytechnic today. So we're all good. Thank you.
All right, terrific. Let's move then to the West Campus. Eduardo, any questions or comments?
I see no questions from my senators, but I would like to ask Lisa just a few questions very quickly. Up until this semester, I've considered myself to be relatively savvy when it comes to technology, but now I've been introduced to all of these other software programs that I've never heard about. Is there some forum where someone can just walk us through, for example, Yellow Dig, or I think PlayPosit, that was something else as well. I have no idea what they do. I have no idea whether they could help me. Is there a place where I can go to learn more about it? That's my first question. The second one is just the Pearson relationship. It sounds good institutionally. It doesn't really connect with me as a professor in terms of what I teach. Do I still need to opt in now? Is that a one-time opt-in, or will I have a chance next year or the year after? Would you know?
Well, actually, Lisa had to leave, so I'm going to sort of step in on this.
Thanks, Betty.
Just real quickly, the Pearson, I do not believe it's a one-time opt-in, although I agree with you. I looked through the list and there was nothing that pertained to anything that I teach, but you know, that's the way it is. As far as the technology part, UTO has some excellent trainings on all of those programs. And I did put a link in the chat pod to the form where you can ask specific questions. But if you go to UTO's site, there is great resources for training. What we're trying to do at the DETL is bring a little bit more of the faculty part into it. So in other words, you know, you can go to UTO and get great training on any of the, like PlayPosit, Yellow Dig, all these things. But we also want to encourage faculty to share their strategies on how they're actually using it. You know, it's one thing to say, these are the 10 steps it takes, but what's your workflow? You know, how does it happen in the course of a semester? How does it work? I don't have access to the link this exact second, but maybe that's something we can post, Simine. I don't know, on the Senate site or something, but if you just go for UTO at ASU's website, you will find tons of training.
Yeah, thanks so much, Penny. It's not so much the training. I would just like an introduction to what they do. I mean, do they just provide that?
You know, that's a great question, Eduardo. Maybe the form I put in there, and I'm going to write a note. Maybe what we need is almost sort of like a bullet list of the top 12 or 15 technologies, and a sentence or two about why should you care, as I always say to my students.
Yeah.
You know? So that's a great suggestion. I will write this down to top tech, and when we meet next, sure, I think we should do that.
All right, thank you, Penny.
Thanks.
Thank you. Those are wonderful suggestions. Well, let's see. It's 4:54.
Simine, there's one more question from downtown, from Senator Maureen McCoy.
Yes, Senator McCoy.
Hey everyone, this is more of a announcement just in our recent focus on food security. The Pitchfork Pantry, which is our on-campus food bank, we do have a relationship with University Student Services, and that we are distributing food packages through every tutoring center on every campus. So I have flyers that I can give to Maria to send out if you want to inform any students of that. We also have an event this Thursday to give out free produce on the Tempe campus, and that's with the School of Sustainability, Sun Devil Dining, all the date trees at Tempe that need to get rid of their dates. And then we'll have canned fruits and vegetables for the students as well. And then we'll also start some perishable pickups on the weekend for students with fresh produce, dairy, eggs, all that good stuff. So I'll send out some flyers to Maria and she can post those for everyone.
Maureen, thank you for being such a champion of our students.
Well, thank you.
All right. There being no further business at this time, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Our next meeting is going to be on November 23rd at 3 p.m. I want to thank you all for your participation. This has been a robust conversation and meeting. And I encourage you to connect with all of the members of your unit to share the proceedings of this meeting with them. Have a great afternoon, and I will look forward to seeing you all next month. Bye-bye.